The storm of controversy surrounding Joe Rogan has, if anything, only grown more fierce as time's gone on, due to a remarkably convenient series of escalating coincidences, almost as if there's some kind of campaign going on. Which of course there is, but we'll get back to that in a second. First, a brief little recap in case you're unaware of what's going on. Joe Rogan was given $100 million by Spotify to bring his incredibly successful podcast series over to their platform. Spotify has now built pretty much their entire business strategy surrounding podcasts on Joe Rogan alone. He is the spear tip which is leading their way into this brand new and very highly monetizable market. It is due to this fact that when an old person, I don't know who is and still don't know who is, demanded that Joe Rogan be deplatformed or he would pull his music off Spotify, Spotify simply responded with, "Goodbye and don't let the door hit you on the way out." And that seemed to be the end of it. One old man yelled at a cloud, but then a group of other old people rallied around the previous one and tried to get Joe Rogan deplatformed again for medical misinformation. That's a term that's been bumping around the internet quite frequently lately and often been used as an excuse to take down YouTube video and deplatform various individuals. What exactly it means? Nobody knows, because the person that Joe Rogan brought on his podcast was a medical expert, and I know we've been told to listen to the scientists, but not their scientists. It's a thin line to cross, and it's damnably difficult to detect before you're already over it, but this was a heretical medical expert, you see, who said things that could be considered medical misinformation. After a while, the Spotify grew a bit tired of waving goodbye to all of these cranky old people and decided to try and fix things with a bit of an apology slash justification. Oh, we couldn't possibly censor Joe Rogan. He's an independent contributor, you see. We don't own or employ him. By the way, Joe, you need to delete a few videos there. And Joe Rogan did just that. And he also put out his own apology video, which was really weird, because it came out like 5 or 6 so days after the initial controversy, and he made some very good points in it that, the reason why he talks to experts is because today's misinformation is tomorrow's truth, as has been demonstrated quite thoroughly over the last couple of years, but Joe Rogan knows that you do not apologize to these people, it's only going to make things worse, and indeed, it did make things worse. In all due likelihood, in Joe's defense, he was probably prodded into doing this by his new corporate overlords. That's the problem with putting on the leash. You gotta take bad advice on occasion. Because then a supercut of every time Joe Rogan said the N-word appeared on the internet, giving us doozies of articles like this. Even the N-word won't get Spotify to deplatform Joe Rogan. And as a brief little aside here, I will never cease to be amazed at the amount of power we have given this noise. You can't even write this word, and any mortal foolish enough to dare utter its dreadful syllables will probably be unemployed the next day thereafter. Even though, and I've made this point on multiple occasions, I view the N-word as an achievement of black people rather than a weight around their neck. I've again made it at length on several different occasions, but real brief, the N-word was invented to be a purely derogatory term based on this scientific word, which I'm also not allowed to utter on YouTube for fear of my own channel. But it was meant purely as an insult, and yet, over the years, the black community managed to take that word, purely derogatory in nature, and build it into a key cornerstone fundament of their own culture. They turned it into a word that means friend, brother, ally, and comrade. They turned the derogatory word into a positive, and they claimed it for their own. Now, I don't see how you could emasculate and destroy a racist term any more thoroughly than that, but what do I know? I'm just some white boy in Norway who doesn't understand the subtleties of American culture. Anywho, this supercut compilation was released by a group by the name of PACTaking. Ironic name if I ever heard one. And let me just point out as well here, Joe Rogan has well over 1,000 podcast episodes stretching into multiple hours, meaning that someone had to sit through thousands of hours of Joe Rogan podcasts to find every single instance of power word N being uttered. This, as you can understand, is it's no small undertaking. It is a disgustingly vast quantity of audio data that needs sifting through, far beyond the abilities of any individual, which is of course why it was not done by an individual, but rather by an organization. Because who the hell is PACTaking? Well, they're a pretty damn large Twitter account, which has been brought in and employed by another called Midas Touch, or Midas Touch, I guess, who runs a website. This is the website. You can see from the little scrolling text here that they're not making any particular efforts to hide their political allegiances. GOP traitors. Ted Snooze. Save democracy. Resign Republican. Arrest Trump now. Yes. This is a pro-democratic media organization that, well, does what they're doing to Joe Rogan right now. They try to get Republicans and people who are opposed to their narrative deplatformed and destroyed via professional media narratives. That is their entire gig, but key, these three brothers who run it are not affiliated with any political movement, paid by a Midas Touch, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee, which means that they are not a political organization, they're merely a bunch of concerned citizens, a so-called super PAC, as the Americans call it, which means that they have no limit on the amount of money they can receive or spend to push their political agendas. One of the many flaws with the American political system, but that's a debate for another time. These three brothers here are the ones behind this, make no mistake, organized attack on Joe Rogan. The supercut of the N-word has also apparently been just the first step, as they've also put out an official response to Joe Rogan's apology. Again, Joe, do not apologize to these people because they are waiting for you to apologize, specifically so they can put out something like this, a pre-made statement, where they claim that, oh, this is abhorrent, this is terrible, he is doing this all the time, you see, he's a racist, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, because this is literally the Project Veritas tactic where you put out something, and then you wait. And you see if the target will try to defend themselves in some way, or even better, lie. In which case, the next little clip drops on the internet, instantly disproving their bullshit and digging them yet further into the now steadily growing pile of horse shit. It's really media tactics 101, and again, Joe Rogan knows this, but his corporate overlords are undoubtedly yanking on that chain dang hard right now. As Spotify is, and I hate to agree with Vice here, but yeah, their CEO is twisting himself into knots to avoid taking responsibility for the Joe Rogan experience. Not that he has any responsibility to take, and I do love it how Vice all of a sudden is like, oh, hold on there, you're not a platform, you're a publisher. Oh, really now? Please tell that to Google and YouTube? What? Silence? I reckon. This has also created some other interesting little things as well, where Rumble put out this notice right here, saying, Dear Joe Rogan, we stand with you, your guests, and your legion of fans in desire for real conversation, particularly that last part, and they're offering him another $100 million over 4 years to come over to Rumble from Spotify. Now, let me just point out one thing here. Now, this is from Discourse TV, showing the Rumble announcement alongside the Odyssey announcement. Odyssey's making fun of this as a bit of a, empty PR gag, and well, it is. I can't deny that it isn't, because here's the thing. Joe Rogan is undoubtedly bound hand and foot by the contract he signed with Spotify. A company like that doesn't give out $100 million and doesn't toss in a pair of particularly nice but still very sturdy manacles for you as well. There is no way Joe Rogan could simply break off his deal with Spotify without probably having to pay a couple $100 million for a violation of his contract. But at the same time, Odyssey, this is not helping anyone. Excuse me if I'm going to go a bit tribalistic here for a second, but we are absolutely in an us versus them situation where they have massive, ginormous super PACs with millions of dollars used specifically for hate projects to deplatform people. That is what they do. That is their business model, and as you can see, it is a very professional business model as well. And for you then to be the alternative media and begin attacking other alternative media, that isn't helping anyone. I get it, it's funny, yes, I'm sure the Rumble thing is probably a pure media bullshit thing, I agree, yet nevertheless, you gotta take a step back and look at the situation as it is unfolding right now. The simple fact is, Joe Rogan is bending the knee as hard as he possibly can. In fact, if you listen very attentively, you can hear the sound of his knees beginning to slowly shatter under the weight of his repeated apologies, which again will do you absolutely no good. Joe, you need to go on the offensive here, rather than trying to appease a mob of bloodthirsty sharks you know cannot be appeased. Hopefully this will further radicalize Joe Rogan, I pray and hope. But will he be able to stay on? Well, the question is this the last stab in his general direction, or is it merely just the midpoint of an extended media campaign to get him muted? Because I do believe that Spotify does have a pain threshold, when enough people with enough influence will begin to bear down on them, to the point where even the White House press secretary has of course said that, oh, whilst the government would never censor anyone, Spotify should do more to take care of this medical misinformation peddler. Ah yes, very subtle, Miss Goebbels. Thank you for your input, it's highly valued, of course. Personally, I would give Joe a 50-50 chance at this point. On the one hand, Spotify has built that entire strategy around him, and so he is incredibly valuable. On the other hand, if an entire mainstream media apparatus bears down on you, whilst the political machine as well begins ramping up the attack, at some point, you've gotta look at current gain versus long-term enmity of the entire ruling class, and in most cases, the fist is going to weigh considerably more heavy than the dove of peace and free speech in these circumstances. We'll have to wait and see. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and if you enjoyed the content, please do consider leaving a like and a comment in the comment section down below, as that is what tickles the YouTube pickle. Have a good day.